I gotta say, I'm loving demo life.
Demo life is good.
Because if you don't have a demo and you're trying to like keep everything under wraps, then like we talked about, everything has to be just a big deal. You know, you got to turn everything into an event, and
you got to embargo everything. Oh my god!
And if we didn't have this demo out and we're going to PAX, then we would instead probably be having a booth, and we would be trying to figure out how to promote the game, setting up all kinds of meetings to, and it's like no, like the demo's out there, it's doing fine, people can see it, people can play it. We don't need to convince anybody of anything. We can just. Just go vibe. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 557 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the weekly podcast for indie game developers. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm their taste and not a programmer.
And we are Butterscotch Shenanigans, and today is January 23rd, 2020. Quick! Yeah! Let's get into it. Okay. Today we want to talk a bit about the upcoming How Many Dudes demo update. And by upcoming, I mean it will already be out by the time this episode airs. So, downcoming? I guess?
Yeah.
Previous?
Incoming.
Outgoing? It's out. So, check it out. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be working on in the coming, I guess, weeks and month and a half.
Basically post-demo strat.
Yeah, because our goal with a lot of the stuff is to give other developers and our players who are interested just some insights into kind of like all the different levers that we have to pull on on the back end here to try to get this game promoted and get things moving, and just what does that look like and how are we thinking about it. And then if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about what's next in terms of how we're going to be working on the game and how we're going to be working toward moving from demo stage to launch stage. So let's just do a quick recap of where we're at with the demo before
what's the deal?
This
what's the deal
update
with
goes
the
out.
dudes?
So the demo is still the live one is still the one from back in December 16th. So it's been out for, I think, like 5 weeks or 6 weeks or something like that. It is in English only, and it has gotten 260,000 downloads with 225,000 players. So there's a subset of people who downloaded it and they're like, I'll get to this later. Because it was 35 megabytes and they were like, that took too long. And I just, between the download time and the time it got, I ran out of time.
Yeah, we always talk about how funny all these filters are, right? Where it's like,
everything's a funnel.
You just get percents chopped out every second, every action. So
it's a pretty high rate though, still.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Because any funnel you go to, if it's more than 1% from one part to the next, I'm always very impressed.
You're like, that's pretty good. Yeah.
The internet is always at a 1% funnel every single time.
Yeah. Our median play time is still creeping upward, and it's kind of tapering off at close to 2 hours. It's at 1 hour 57 minutes, which, as we have talked about in the past, kind of a good benchmark for Steam demo is about an hour would be like a really good high.
Yeah, that would be an outstanding amount. I think what's the actual like across the store median? It's like 30 minutes or something.
Yes, it's not
something like
that high. Yeah.
So we don't know where we're at in terms of percentile. All we know is that Steam on the back end just says well above average, which we'll take it. So it's just cooking. It's going great. And as we had also talked about in the past couple of episodes, we had gotten into the discovery queue, and that was bringing in a bunch of visibility kind of at the same time as the sort of YouTuber and Twitch streamer winter break hype was trailing off. So the discovery queue kind of came in and picked up the slack. So discovery queue is also tapering off. So now we're sliding into the churn where there's not anything big happening, and it's just kind of like a passive thing going on.
And to give some numbers for context there for people, we talk about the discovery queue is sending us around between like 10 and 15,000 views per day, and essentially a flat line for, as we suspected, about 2 weeks. And it kind of ramped up to that over 2 days, and then it did that kind of flatline thing, and now it's on the downslope, and we are at about 3,000-ish visits per day from the discovery queue directly. And we're getting still, like yesterday we got around 1,500 wish lists. Today we already have about 990 wish lists. So I think we're going to be up close to 1,200 or so, maybe 1,500. So it is still a surprising amount of continued wish lists as like all of those major things have been kind of turning off.
For reference, we've never been able to do that with.
No, sustained.
We've never been able to hit that level of sustained wish list with anything we've done before. So if you know, for just as a frame of reference, this is like this is anomalously good.
It is 10x. It is 10x what we saw passively with like Crash Science 2, for example, which is chilling around like 100 a day.
We still don't know what the full passive is for.
Yeah, like if the discovery queue falls off and there's also nothing happening, then we would really kind of see.
Yeah.
But also just bearing in mind that like before we launched the demo, our passive daily rate was like 5.
Yeah.
Unless we put out a YouTube short, then it would go up to like we'd get like 200 or 500 or something from that short, and then it would plummet back down to like 5 or 10 a day. And so a lot of this stuff is very, there's a lot of word of mouth, there's a lot of algorithm stuff going on, and we had, the whole point of the demo was to kind of get that flywheel going. But the demo is English only, which is why we're doing this next update, so that we can, I think as Adam put it, we can breach containment.
Yep.
It could get out into the world, into a broader audience. And so with this update, we're adding 8 languages, and that's getting text into a game is always like a huge administrative nightmare.
Yeah.
We've had probably 10 or 20 podcast episodes just purely dedicated to the perils of localization, so we won't get into it, but with so we're doing, what are we doing? Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Latin American Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, German, French, and Russian.
Yes. Yep. There you go.
So for that, we kind of just went through Steam. We're like, all right, what are the most represented languages on Steam? And we'll start with those, and then we'll just kind of
there's kind of a two-parter. So there's who on Steam, because Steam publishes a language breakdown for users, their preferred, or I guess it's what language they've set the Steam client in is what it is, right? And so you can use that as one reference. You can also go look at like all the games that have launched for the last year or whatever, and ask what languages did they translate into? Because maybe people know, maybe there's an asymmetry there because different language, like people who speak one language might be very likely to speak English or some other language, right? That you might also support, or there might be differences in spending in different regions and that kind of stuff.
Right. So you may not want to bother, even if
there might be some group that's like well represented on Steam, but who don't buy games or who also speak English, and so
whatever
you could do a different language instead and save that save that cache or whatever. So we kind of use both of those to get the list, as well as that question of how important is it for a given sort of cultural context? Because, for example, in Japan, everybody says if you're going to be in Japan at all, it's got to be in Japanese. Otherwise,
Chinese is the same.
Yep. Otherwise, just absolutely
don't worry about it.
Don't even publish in the region. Basically, it won't even make a dent.
Yeah. So that's kind of our next plan then is get this demo update out, and we're not only adding languages, we have tons of new features. We got a bunch of dude reworks. We got a new scavenger dude who shows up and borrows your relics, and we added like a new boss to the end game.
There's a daily dude.
We have a new game mode where it's a daily dude where every week or every day there's a new batch of dudes that you could just play with as much as you want that day, and it's like a locked in set of dudes. So just tons and tons of stuff, as well as just like lots of optimizations and bug fixes and just good things all around. So we've had a bunch of people play testing that version of the demo on a branch on Steam, and that's going smoothly. So hopefully we can get this update out just this weekend, and then we start promotion. So we're working with Recoup, who's going to be then reaching out to tons and tons of international.
I believe their list is 4,100 people, influencers and stuff for this batch, right? Because now we're going worldwide instead of just English speakers. So
going global.
That's a lot. And what basically what they do is they have a list of way more people than that, and they curate it down to try to figure out who would this game really be compatible with the types of games that they play and their audience and stuff like that, and and then just
start slinging some emails,
just start sending it out there. And it's a little easier with the demo because we don't need Steam keys or anything.
It's honestly so much easier with the demo.
It's just email them and say, hey, what do you think? And it's like a phishing thing where it's kind of like you're not going to get all of them. What you want to do is you want to try to get at least enough of like even like smaller or mid-sized channels that word of mouth starts to spread and that you get some exposure, and then And then if there are other influencers, YouTubers, whatever, who watch these smaller channels and they have larger channels, they see that this game was there, it looks funny, gets a lot of engagement, whatever, and then they'll make a video on it, and it kind of snowballs.
Yeah. So we're basically hoping to replicate what we saw on the English side, just kind of everywhere, and see if we can get some good pickup. That's like the next big piece. But I think
it is still just like the English side is it's chance based, right? Like we get it out there, so it can happen.
And it might not resonate at all with the international audience.
You never know.
Or just might not be the case that a big streamer picks it up, because like on the English side we had a big YouTuber pick it up.
Dangerously Funny, Moist Critical.
Yeah, but as an important note, like we had sent out, and I think we mentioned this earlier, we had sent out keys in November. It was not keys because we didn't have a demo at that point. To just like 20, I think, right?
20 on the English speaking side, and I think 20 on the Chinese influencer side too.
Yeah. And just no real response whatsoever.
Sifty, I think, was the only one from that group, and he published his video actually like the day before the demo went live. Just sort of coincidentally. So 3 weeks later, And
so
things all take time.
Yeah, and social proof is so powerful, right? Like it takes at least one of these people to give it a shot and kind of take a gamble on it and give it a try, to demonstrate to the other people. We always kind of joke about how it's funny to like that we call these people influencers when really they are so influenced by what is already trending.
It's a circular thing, it's all circular.
And they help it to trend, but they also chase trends. So they kind of like they're stuck in the loop. They don't drive it as much.
Yeah, they're part of the positive feedback loop, right? They're not.
Yeah, they don't just make it happen, but they join in the cycle
and they propel it. Forward.
So aside from all that, then so our hope, like Sam said, our hope is that then that kind of helps to kickstart more traction for the game on the international front. And on top of that, we've then got this big slate of events that are coming up, which is another big reason why we wanted to get the demo updated, is for Next Fest, Steam Next Fest, which is the big Steam demo
extravaganza,
which is on February 23rd. And so we're primed for that. Got the demo in a good spot. We're ready to go. We got all the languages. And in the meantime, there's a bunch of other shit too. So there's the Tiny Roguelikes event, which is happening on January 31st. So we're just submitting. We're just like, whatever event opens up, we just throw how many dudes at them. We're like, can we be in this?
Yep.
And sometimes they're like, this is about fishing. So like, I don't know. We're like, oh, my bad.
Yep.
We'll add a fishing dude later.
I'm going to let you tell me no. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. I think it's the funny thing about a lot of the promotional stuff is you do have to have a degree of that, which is like, let other people tell you if something doesn't fit. I mean, obviously,
to be fair, we actually didn't submit to a fishing event. Like we're not we're not trying to like annoy people with stuff that's clearly doesn't fit.
We don't waste your time too, but like at the same time, you don't self-eliminate if it could be possible for you to be included, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, if there's a chance where you're like, this kind of fits, just send it.
For example, like Crashlands 2, we could be like, fishing game, because
it's true.
It's got fishing in it, right?
True.
So at that level, throw that in. Throw that in the thing, right?
And if we add a fisherman dude,
also
then at that point we would. We don't have one, but if we did,
because like it's already a Halloween
deadliest
game.
Catch sort of situation.
Yes,
Because how many dudes is already a Halloween game? Because it's got to go.
It's spooky.
It's got zombies,
and maybe we add a game mode for the full game where it's fishing. And your dudes are just hanging out around a fishing hole. I don't know. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, we add a Santa dude. Now it works for Christmas.
We had a whole Christmas family of dudes. We're gonna have elves. We're gonna have Santa. Those are the two types of Christmas.
I feel like a
dudes.
holiday set of dudes would be so fun. So fun.
Yes.
Jack Skellington.
Easter Bunny dude.
Easter Bunny. Yep.
Yeah. So we submitted for the Tiny Roguelikes event, which seems to fit because it's a roguelike and it's 50 megabytes. I feel like that counts as tiny, right? And then there's the Flash Games Vibes event.
Our whole studio fits just squarely into.
Yeah, which basically just means 2D without a lot of detail, I think is kind of what a
2D cartoony.
Yeah, though I think they did take Crashlands too also. So it's like black outlines, I think is actually what it is.
Yeah.
And probably like vibrant colors. Then there's the Convergence Showcase on February 19th, which is not a Steam event. right? Or does it also have a Steam event
It does
associated
also have
with
a
it?
Steam event. Yes.
Yeah, it'll have a Steam page and all
At least
that
I'm trying
stuff.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big promo event with lots of big names, and that was when we had to
Shell out some cash for it.
we had to
needed
actually, yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. It's interesting because like the difference between when we submitted to that was right before the demo went out, and we got all paid up for that, and then versus when it happens, we're now one of the ticket items on it. So
yeah,
because we're so cool
when we submitted, they were like, "What the fuck is this?" And then by the time the showcase happens, they're like, "Oh, this is great. This is so great that how many dudes is
Yep.
The tables turn real quick, don't they?
They do. They do.
So then Steam Next Fest is on February 23rd, like I mentioned, and then that goes on for what, like
2 weeks.
2 weeks or something. And that is oftentimes a pretty good driver of wish lists and traffic and stuff. So I think that'll be really good for the game.
Yeah, and for some
then-
context too, before we launched the demo, for like my thinking about this whole time was basically like we're getting the demo out so we can kind of battle test it, see how it performs, all that kind of stuff, so that we're ready for Next Fest, because I was
That's
expecting
the big one.
that the big next boost to like the big thing that would start kicking us off would be Next Fest. I did not expect that it would already have been kicked off.
Yes.
So now we
We'll
don't know
get
what's
to
going to
Next
happen.
Fest.
with
So now I
Next
don't know
Fest,
what to
but-
expect. Yeah, like
It
will it be
honestly
good? Will it be proportional?
It will be
Will it-
hard to match the insanity of the last month.
Yeah, exactly. So
I've not heard of an indie game in Nexus getting 100,000 wish lists from it.
well, yeah, I haven't
But
either.
I
But
don't know.
also,
Maybe
like
they-
nobody talks about.
People don't-
this
I mean,
shit
yeah, well, this
happens,
is a
so,
big
yeah,
reason
sure.
why we kind of, I'm sure some of our listeners have kind of noticed, like we made a while back, we made a conscious decision to try to just be much more public about behind the scenes numbers for how many dudes, because we found so much value in looking at stuff like the Balatro timeline.
Yeah.
And just like, okay, it gives you a benchmark of how to think about these things, or even just like how other people thought about them at a given point in time, and then how they reacted and how they planned and stuff like that. And it's kind of a nice consolation in some cases where, like, when we, before we released our demo, and we were getting like 20, 25 or whatever wish lists a day, and then going and seeing like, oh yeah, like when Balatro released their demo, they had 180 something wish lists. And it's like, yeah, sometimes the proof is in the pudding and you just got to get it out there, So we were doing Next Fest, and then hopefully we'll have some numbers we can share about how that goes. We also have an event called Turn-Based Thursday on March 9th. And then we're going to PAX East. So it's
we're actually just
like,
going just us though. We're not demoing anything. So
yeah, we don't have a booth. Because
we'll talk to biz dev people if there are any there, but we're not going there even for that. We're just going there because we're like, we need to get out amongst the people.
We just want to be away from the computer. Yeah, and I don't know. I gotta say, I'm loving demo life.
Demo life is good
Because if you don't have a demo and you're trying to like keep everything under wraps, then like we talked about, everything has to be just a big fucking deal. You got to turn everything into an event, and
you got to embargo everything. Oh my god!
And if we didn't have this demo out and we're going to PAX, then we would instead probably be having a booth, and we would be trying to figure out how to promote the game, how to talk to it, setting up all kinds of meetings to, and it's like, no, like the demo's out there, it's doing fine, people can see it. People can play it. We don't need to convince anybody of anything. We can just go vibe. So we're going to be going to that. And then in the meantime, so we had mentioned in our public fact that our kind of target launch window is by end of June.
Which means we want it to be significantly before that if we can pull it off.
If we can, but also we would give ourselves room for if there's like either something like, oh, it turns out we have an opportunity to come to consoles, but we need controller support, and that's that means a UI overhaul. If there's some kind of,
or even coming to mobile, because we're all playing it on mobile ourselves, but we haven't sat down to be like, okay, how do we tune this up?
Yeah, we haven't fixed it. You know what I mean?
There's a bunch of optimizations, but then there's also just stuff like if we come up with some kind of a killer feature where we're like, ooh, like the game's really good, but this would really set it over the edge, but we need like an extra couple of weeks to develop that and then test it and stuff. So we're just basically giving ourselves the time, but also it's a combinatorial game. And so as we add each new type of dude, try to make sure that dude is well balanced takes a little bit longer each time. And so
well, I think that's actually the interesting challenge about this game, because we talked earlier in past episodes about how this game is such that we could kind of just pick a point in time and be like, we'll just release whatever we've got at that point. Like that would work, right? But the people are playing it so much, and the balance and like exactly how everything interacts in the game is so impactful to a person's experience that any significant change to that is really risky in terms of like.
We did experience that in the demo, and the demo update that we did. We had made a bunch of changes, some of them balance related, but some of them just mechanically to how like a few things worked. It threw it off. It threw it off enough that we had to revert most of those, which we all, when we were talking through them and trying to figure them out, it was like they all seemed like very good ideas on paper. And I think what's been interesting about working on How Many Dudes is how many times we're like, oh, let's just tweak this a little bit so we can get either just for some like accuracy purposes or like to solve like a little minor problem, and then it like just fucking
well, I still stand by them, but we needed to revert them for the demo because they needed more time to cook. So here's a
they would need like you basically have to cascade out to other systems too. Right.
So as an example, so we have characters in the game which we'd often refer to as tanks, which is like they're dudes who taunt enemies to attack them. So they draw attacks onto themselves so that the rest of your dudes are less likely to get pancaked, right? So the classic example of it is the Knight, which is just the most basic tank in the game. He's just a big dude covered in armor, and he just taunts enemies. That's his whole thing. So one of the things that we kind of noticed was if you get into like these bigger and bigger battles against larger numbers of big enemies, say like 200 bears or something, then you have these tanks who are taunting enemies, but the enemies end up kind of like they create like a crowd around the tank, but most of the enemies can't actually get to the tank because there's such a huge pile of enemies there that they can't like push their way through. It's like
being in a mob, you're in the back. Yeah. Freshly taunted, you just get to the back of the line, wait your turn to go punch the guy, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
And so it created this kind of unusual thing where like tanks were kind of in a hidden secret way. They were mitigating damage for your team by basically just
preventing damage from getting to anybody.
Preventing damage from happening at all. Like no attacks are being made because the enemies are just like, I can't get through the crowd, and because they're so fixated on the tank, there could be another dude right next to them they could attack, but they're not. They're just like trying to push through the crowd. So as an experiment, we're like, okay, let's just make it so that taunted enemies ignore collision with other enemies. So if the Knight says like, you come attack me, then that enemy just immediately pushes its way through the crowd as if the crowd isn't there. And so tanks would end up with like a much tighter cluster of enemies around them. Which did mean that like tanks were just getting
mowed down.
Yeah. But also enemies have cleave, which means if they hit, they'll in their initial attack, they'll hit the tank, but also they'll hit nearby dudes.
And that was the thing where it was funny because it's like the tanks are built for being hit, so you couldn't really tell the difference too much on the tanks actually in terms of like how this felt.
But your other dudes,
just started dying the whole time.
And the funny thing was we kind of simulated it a bunch of times in our kind of back end tool where we can like set things up however we want to and then run some tests. And it was really it was about a 10% increase in damage taken for your team. So that's just, they're just like enemies are just getting like 10% more attacks off in these scenarios. But that was enough to make it so that you
couldn't handle it.
A lot of your dudes were just kind of getting
you got whole relics in the game whose job is to boost something by 5%, and that makes a substantial change.
Yeah.
So this is like the point is that if we stop at some point and release the game at that point, right, then the risk to like, because if there's more stuff we want to do, and we're like, oh, we'll do this as like post-launch updates, right, which we'll do some anyway, definitely. But if we're not careful about how significant of a change comes after launch, the risk of us changing the game in a way that the fandom, who are already like very intense about the game and what they want,
they love those
how
dudes.
They feel about the balance, right? Like if we make a tweak that makes them think at all that we've made things change for the worse, then again, it's a very risky territory. So now we have to play like a little bit different kind of a balance game of just like not just is it good enough to release, but what else are we going to want to have in here, and would it be how dangerous would it be to have that wait until after release rather than be like, let's
And
get
does
the
it-
whole thing cooked so we know exactly how it's all supposed to work.
Yeah.
Get that out.
And does it maintain the feel that the demo gave? Because
Yeah.
again, you
It has
have
to.
250,000 people fucking playing that thing. Like these aren't small potatoes numbers.
Yeah, the
anymore.
full game
So
has
it's
to maintain the feel exactly, but
Well,
be
it-
a lot more.
Yeah,
right?
and it's also been interesting, kind of like parsing player feedback, because when people give feedback, they will often just describe things. They'll claim that it's a problem, and then they'll describe it, but they'll just state it as a fact. So one of my favorite examples is every now and then you'll have people coming in. They're like, I don't like how long the runs are. The runs need to be shorter. But that same person will complain about the fact that their runs always end on round 80 because round 80 is hard, right? And it's like, well,
what you're really saying is that you can't get a strategy to work in a satisfying enough way, paired with the fact that a run takes a long time,
right? Because it's
you're
basically
saying
saying
because it took a long time in
To
the
lose.
it took a long time for me to get
Just
to
to
80,
lose
and
at
then I
round 80.
lost.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's like I wanted my run to go on longer, and I was annoyed that it got cut short. Therefore, runs are too long, right? And so it's like the way that people talk about things is always, it's very difficult to, and we've been doing it for a long time, so we're fairly practiced at it. But to kind of tease apart, like, what is really the problem here?
That's true internally too, right? Because
Yeah.
we have the same. Because like
Yeah.
I'm watching, I'm mostly doing other stuff, but I'm like watching Sam and Seth argue constantly about like
every day.
when I played, I felt like this, and the other person's like, well, when I played, I felt the opposite, right? And
Mhm.
so we are spending also all of our time trying to figure out why we
gotta
feel a
triangulate.
particular
Yep.
way about.
All three of us
something.
have very different ways of thinking about and playing games, like very
Mhm.
different. We've always kind of joked about how even like when Sam and I, when it was just Sam and me in the studio, that Sam and I always came at every problem from
Mhm.
opposite directions. And then when we brought Adam in, somehow there was a third yet still opposite direction.
Well,
in
the
like
worry
a
at the
new
time,
dimension.
too.
It was just three-dimensional space, turns
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
The worry
Yeah.
at the time is that both of you were like, "Oh no, what if this upsets the balance?" Because now,
Right,
like,
because if
I'll
Adam
come in-
agrees
Run all
with
the time.
Sam most of the time or me most of the time about
Yeah.
something, but it's like, no, we all just still disagree just
Yeah.
in a new way.
That's the thing about having opinions, but it's also true about all of our. It's true about all of our players too, right? If you read their feedback, everyone is opposite to everybody else's feedback. It's the same.
Generates a lot of
Yeah.
conversation, I'll tell you.
But-
that.
Which is
but
good,
also-
but that's also why when you do see something that comes up a bunch, right? Then
Mhm.
now you're like, okay, that must be because if everyone does have just opposite opinions by default, and everything's orthogonal in a huge multi-dimensional plane, right?
Right.
If then 5 people come in and say the same thing, you're like, okay, that's probably like a real. That's probably a real
The trick is basically
thing.
is not to be super reactive. When,
Yeah.
Basically, once you got a good thing going, which we do, then we dudes, we don't need to be super reactive. So what we need to do is make sure that we're making those changes that actually address core issues and not accidentally kind of fuck it up by focusing on some of the specifics that people might be talking about. And a lot of that just requires kind of just sitting there. You just listen. You know what I mean? You got to just listen as a designer. Otherwise you, I don't know.
Well,
you just
well,
start
and
doing
also
weird shit.
solutions to problems are often the opposite.
Solution is not really what any of us are interested in hearing about from people. You know what I mean? It's like the solutions are interesting because people always present them actually as like what they're. That's a suggestion, right?
People say, and it always starts with, "It would be really nice if." And like
Yes.
personally, my instinct is like whenever somebody says it would be nice if, I never I obviously read it, but I never like take it into consideration. I'm always just trying to think about like why are they saying this would be nice?
Yeah, you're looking for the
If you
missing
are
half.
a player watching this
Mhm.
episode, and you want to be, and you want to feel like, how can I influence how a game ends up to be more like what I want? Tell people how it affects you, right? So say like, when I did this happened, and I didn't like it, or whatever. Do not give.
I would just say the easiest one is just saying put a because on the end of it. So if you say it would be nice if blah, because
if you want to provide a suggestion,
this is how
sure.
this thing made me feel, right?
Yeah, but the better thing is
that
not even
part
provide the
the most important.
suggestion at all. Is instead just to be like, if there's something about it that's bugging you, figure out try to figure out what the thing is that's bugging you and express that, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's feeling too long, what actually happened is maybe you got bored. That's actually more useful information.
Yep.
Yeah,
Than
because it's
too
weird.
long, right?
Yeah, it's
Because
weird
we're
to
trying
have
to
like
compute what you actually mean,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And if you just
Well-
tell us what you mean, then we can actually use that.
yeah, and there's also weird stuff like I always love like seeing the Steam reviews where somebody's like, "Oh yeah, I have like 3,000 hours in this game. Here are all my complaints about it." Right, and it's like, it seems like the game did its job in the sense that like
It's probably fine.
you got 3,000 hours of enjoyment out of it, which doesn't mean that it can't be improved. Right, obviously.
Well, this is the expertise trap too. Right? I was just thinking about this recently because I've been overhauling my personal blog and I've been like taking old blog posts and like tweaking them and stuff, And there's one I had about this same kind of a problem, but just in like, how do you choose? Because it's true for a game, it's true for anything, but in this case, it was like, how do you choose like a game engine, right? And it was like, you make the choice when you know nothing, and then you build expertise in the choice that you made. And once you have expertise, you are mad. You hate the thing that you have expertise in because you know everything. You know everything about it.
You know how wrong it is about everything.
You know how
And
all
you
the ways
have
it
no
could be better.
expertise in alternatives, and so they all seem great.
Yep.
But the experts in those things are equally pissed off.
Yeah, and this works
the
in
grass
games
is always
too, right?
greener
So yeah.
sort of
So if you
situation.
play a game for 1,000 hours, like you know everything about the game, and your opinions have no relationship to what a person's first 100 hours are into the game, right? And this is true for us too, building the game, because we're playing it for hundreds and thousands of hours, and now we have to try to keep track of like, am I having this response because I'm a deep
because
expert,
I know
not only
too
having made
much.
the game but playing the game for 1,000 hours? Have I gotten to the point where I can't enjoy this anymore? But it's not about the game; it's about the fact that I've played it for 1,000 hours, right? And keeping that disentangled as a developer,
Right. But it's also
really
and it's also a good problem to be able to diagnose as a developer and say like, what could I add to the game so that someone like me, who's got
still
hundreds
has
of
fun.
hours in, can still find new interesting things to do, but that doesn't disrupt
and
what
that's
a
the
new
challenge.
player.
Because how would you
experience,
know
right?
if it disrupts a new player experience? Because you can't have it. You can never have the new player experience ever again. Once you're in
you are corrupted. You are you are a source of corruption.
That's
So
where
it's all pretty
playtesting comes in. This is where making a change, having a beta channel, being like, hey, but the problem with the betas too, and we're already seeing this with how many dudes, is who's playing the demo beta right now? People who played the demo for
dudes.
dozens of hours. Yeah, so we don't get to test the new player experience, right? And this is, I think, to me, this is like the core downside of this developing in public and keeping things like open and releasing stuff, is we lose the ability to bring in fresh blood on purpose to test like how is the early player experience.
It's more like you always have that ability. It's just that you can't. You no longer have a clear way of talking to that cohort. Right.
Yeah, to be fair,
demos.
you never did anyway, right? But the difference is because I take like Crashlands 2. Crashlands 2, we had a lot of people who were excited about having Crashlands 2. Most of them were Crashlands 1 players, so they're already kind of polluted. But at least that we knew they hadn't played Crashlands 2. And so we had a way to find those people and know they had not played Crashlands 2. With how many dudes that like we don't have a way.
Well, it's almost a sequel trap where it's like when we launched the full game, and we kind of talked internally about how like how we're setting up a pseudo sequel, which is like for Crashlands to Crashlands 2, we lied to launch Crashlands and sell it, and then develop Crashlands 2 and launch that and sell it
10 years later
to develop a fan base from the first game and bring it into the second game. With how many dudes, we could do it in a concentrated way with the free demo as a prequel, right? And then the full launch of the game, which will have a lot of changes and be different. It'll have lots of different things in it. Can be viewed like a sequel because you're taking this existing fan base from the demo and bringing them into a new yet similar thing.
But also forcefully, right? Because if you're a Steam player and you're on the demo and you go get the real game,
different.
The demo is gone.
Yeah,
it's gone.
And
we have
people
forced you into the sequel, right? So we better not fuck that up.
Like you got to set up expectations appropriately, right? And that's the tricky part.
Well, and last week I had noted, or maybe it's 2 episodes ago, I had noted how, I was anticipating that some people would be upset about just any change coming in. And yeah, sure enough, like we have had some extremely belligerent, angry, and frankly, verbally abusive people come into the Discord. And in some cases, they just perceived that something had changed, even though it had not changed whatsoever. And they had sort of invented in their mind some way that we had ruined the game and then started abusing us about it.
Well, it's also the thing about a game built on randomness, right?
People
seek patterns.
Time.
Yeah, your experience every time. And if you get the update, you have a different experience the next few rounds.
You're like, wow, they ruined the game.
Yep.
I like last time I played with this team, it was easier, and now it's suddenly hard. It's like, yeah, but like maybe there were some key relics that you didn't get yet, and
Yes, this stuff is really risky. I think that's gonna be the interesting challenges as because the demo's going well and we're going to try to make it bigger, we could have, and we've already had, like we said, 200-some thousand demo players, right?
Same.
By the time we launch this thing, we could be closing in on 1 million people playing the demo, right?
It's true. Yeah.
And we got to haul all those people successfully into
the update. Well, I mean, we're gonna piss some of them off just because they're determined to be pissed off.
There's no way around it. But
If
also
you get a large enough group of people, it's just some people. But I think
we have to be ready for that onslaught too. Of like, okay, when that happens, how do we handle those players? Because it'll be very easy, also from a community management standpoint, for the subreddit for the game and for our Discord to get turned into a negative cesspool because you don't need that many negative people.
But I don't think it doesn't seem like it'll happen. So, and the reason I say this is because largely we've seen is because the updates are good and they're grounded in the testing, right? So we have enough people playing them early before they go out widely that largely, like again, 99% of the feedback for all this update stuff has been extremely positive. And so I think
it still will be. I'm just saying, like, once there's 100,000 people who want to give us feedback, and 1,000 of them are being dicks. But
I think what's interesting about that is actually that it's a volume game. So what's interesting is actually the more players we have, the more the community self-regulates. Where the people who are allowed, it's like, yeah, there might be 1,000 of them, but like that actually hits very different if there's literally 99,000 people who are like, chill out. You know what I mean? Like so I think as long as the margin is, as long as the volume of people is big enough in terms of who's participating,
you can't actually prevent it, but you can stand, like your community can stamp it out pretty quick.
But I more mean that like we'll see it, and it's a volume thing, right? But we'll see a lot of it, even though we'll be seeing a lot more positive stuff. And what we remember, and we always talk about for a game launch,
it's hard,
is no matter how many good things you see about your game,
will be verbally abused.
But it's not just that. You will remember, and you will be impacted by the slightest, like every little negative thing. And in the case with How Many Dudes, if we're really lucky and this is a huge hit and it blows up at launch and everything, so that we're seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of people talk about it publicly, and tens and hundreds of those are being butts, we're just going to be seeing tens of hundreds of butts. It'll feel like a lot because it'll be a bunch of different people. Because right now with like Crashlands 2 and our other games, like we've had the butts, right? But there's so few, we kind of like can identify them by name almost, you know? Like it's like not that many, it feels like. It's just like, a few people hate this.
Versus a constant stream of butts.
Yeah, here's my random new butts.
Here's my beef though. It doesn't actually, like the verbal abuse doesn't actually bother me as much as people just being wrong. Like if you're going to come in and be a dick, at least bring receipts. You know what I mean? Like, show up and like have your facts right. Because if you're pissed off and slinging abuse, but also you're just wrong. Like if you're just,
it's just a risky way to move in life. You know what I mean?
Don't do it, but at least be right.
You know, it's the difference between like
there's a correlation there is the problem.
If you feel like something goes wrong, like in a relationship or whatever else, it's almost always better to just ask a question first than it is to start with. Yeah, because the problem is like so many times. You're actually, like Seth's saying, you're actually wrong about something.
You've made an assumption about something. You've gotten upset about that assumption, and then you come in claiming that assumption is true. And now suddenly the person on the other end is trying to diffuse your anger and explain to you why you shouldn't be angry because you've made something up that's not real. And then the whole thing is just too much.
It's all over the place. I do think it's an interesting note with. In general, we've talked about this. One of the struggles of game dev is just like it's the nice thing about having a good game out, which is that you have a passionate player base. Is also like you have it comes with the territory. You know, like it's going to be there. You have to have support. You have to have like good mental models for approaching this stuff, so that you don't. I don't know. Even when you're having a very good time and like a game's going really well, like How Many Dudes is going extremely well, better than we expected, right? The fact that those things can still hit just as hard as they do when your game is not doing well, right? It's just kind of there. It's because
there's always a worry too of like, you know, if somebody comes in and they're upset about something in the game, you know, as a good developer trying to take feedback, you know, you're like, okay, did I miss something? Like, what did I? Is this actually like a broader problem? Did I fuck something up? You know, and you know, sometimes a player comes in and they're upset about something and they are correct.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly.
And like, it would have been better had they come in more
if they were also nice.
So that we could actually have a more productive conversation about it instead of like starting the conversation with like a bomb defusal, you know. But I also like something that that we always try to take in mind is that I think people, especially in games, are pretty accustomed to being like players. They're pretty accustomed to being ignored and generally just kind of having their thoughts and ideas just kind of disregarded. Because
and also the
they're
media that
accustomed-
they're funneled into, like the things around games, the YouTube channels, the whatever, the stuff that they're all funneled to algorithmically is the stuff that is just mad.
It's kind of rage
mean,
bait.
and
Yeah,
anti-game
right.
developer, and
Mhm.
like So
Yeah.
they're just like stewing in this mess, and then also don't have interactions with actual people who make games.
Yeah. So it's very weird for somebody, for a player to be able to, pop into a Discord for a game that they like and then just immediately be in a one-on-one conversation with the guy who programmed the game,
Mhm.
or the
And
guy who's
also-
making the art, or
and
whatever,
discover that it was the one guy, right?
Yeah, there's not, and they'll be like, the devs should do this. I'm like,
I am the devs.
plural? Yeah, like, it's something I'm gonna have to do, because people are just more accustomed to dealing with corporate chatbots and shit like that.
Yeah, it's a very cultural thing. I think it's the nice thing is like our Discord, our own community is actually very good at like again, it's self-regulating over time. We talked a lot about that in many episodes ago about like trying to get the right culture to take root in your whatever community you're making for your game, because it can fully self-regulate once it gets going, right? So people tone each other down. They're like, hey, you don't need to be a dick to Seth. He's the one guy. Like, what are you doing? Before we even get
the
involved.
He's
challenge is
tired.
always
Yeah,
challenge is
yeah.
volume and new people,
Yeah.
right? Because that's true when the Discord is kind of humming along, right? New people keep coming in, but there's most of the people who are there.
Mhm.
But and we saw this with questions too. Also, when we launched, we had a huge influx of people into the Discord for the first week of launch, right? People
Mhm.
coming in asking questions, whatever. Overwhelming, like a number. Way more active people than we'd had for like years, right? And fortunately, it's Crashens 2 players. They're mostly chill anyway, right? So, and they're mostly just there because they have a question about something. But in terms of like volume, like that overwhelmed the community's capacity to self-regulate. And so I think that's
honestly, I
the
think it's a
thing we
nice
have to be
thing
paying
though
attention to.
about building the demo first though too, is actually we get to seed all this.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? You get to slowly, incrementally build out this thing so that when launch happens and there is actually like, in the ideal world, there's like 10, 100x what we're seeing right now, right? But if we have
But they're
enough of
coming
this
in, so
root
there's at
there,
least something there.
yeah, they're landing. They don't get, you don't get to like make a culture that's brewed and stuff. He's going to be coming into a nice one.
Yeah.
So,
But
Yeah,
also,
so
we
it's-
can be pretty aggressive. We're like, if somebody comes into the Discord, even if they're like talking about the game and they're like participating in conversations, but they're just kind of a dick, we just ban them.
Yeah.
Just bad.
Like,
Yep.
because it's
And you have to be more aggressive as the volume grows to keep things.
yeah,
from-
because our philosophy is just like, if you're not obviously a positive member of the community, then you're gone. And you may be providing feedback, or like everybody's providing feedback, and if you're doing it in a way that's just causing problems, we don't need you there.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
when
not
a
good to
community is
have you.
relatively small, you can
So
you can try to gently correct people. There's other stuff that you can do if you want. You don't have to,
yeah,
right?
but at a certain point, you just get that.
you
ban
don't have the
hammered.
time. There's 100 more butts in line waiting to get banned.
all
so you
these
gotta-
butts.
Yep,
Yeah.
butts from top to bottom.
Yeah. So we've been kind of going through all that stuff. I'm curious to see what'll happen once the demo gets updated fully. And we like you guys were saying,
Launched.
when we kind of force push all these changes out onto everybody instead of the opt-in group. And also when we are doing it on the test branch, it's framed as like the purpose of this is testing. So we don't know whether all this stuff is where we want it. That's why it's testing, right?
Yeah, people have a little more grace on
Yeah.
average, but
Yeah,
But yeah,
once
people-
it's
I think-
out,
I think-
then it's like this is what we want, and then that's when you can run it a little bit more fresh.
but I think our experience has been largely with any of the stuff we've done with beta tests, with a demo, with whatever, is that players don't differentiate that much, honestly, between those
No.
experiences. And we saw that with like Steam Early Access used to feel very different than it does today. But I think it's largely because Steam, like earlier Steam, was for nerds. Like as a platform, it was for people who are really into games, who play on PC, who are fucking with their PCs all the time, just like nerds, right? And so there's and if you say, "Hey, I'm a nerd, I'm going to go interact with an early access like beta version of a game," I'm expecting infinite jank, right?
Right.
But over time, Steam became less about being for nerds, and just that's where you get PC games.
Well, I think
you know what I mean?
also it's more so. I don't know if it was like the fact that early access existed at all, but the reality is that every game that sells enough units does post-launch content, which means that your feedback is something that could be incorporated in a game later. It means that the game is not done ever when you buy it. And so I think there's been some shift there too, where it's like the distinction of it being early access versus just launch. And
people
we're continuing to
always
work on
talk
it.
about games as if the game needs to constantly be changing and that there's infinite resources to do so. Like, and it's interesting because when people talk about something like chess, you know, the conversations about chess are just like strategies for playing chess. It's not, here's all the ways that chess needs to change. Nobody talks about that shit. People just accepted that this is what the game
Chess is immutable. It's not an ongoing conversation.
Right.
Well, it is because it's also physical, right? Because the moment we move beyond, like, we have to get shipped a DVD or, you know, CD to like install your software, because like we treated games as immutable growing up because they were. It didn't matter if you had opinions. It didn't matter if you sent opinions. It didn't matter if they wanted to make a change. They
could.
Yeah. You have the disc now. It's over. You know?
As soon as stuff started getting delivered with the internet, then now it's software. You can change it to
but I think I don't know. It's always like, I think that's what's so fun about it is the fact that like it is an ongoing conversation between us and the player base, and it's like it is so fun to work on a game that so many people are playing, truthfully, and giving feedback on. I think the tricky bit is where all of that intersects actually with like platform and market forces and how that becomes tricky. So like the fact that you can leave reviews. You leave reviews on early access games. The fact that like expectations wise, early access games aren't even early access anymore. Like all the stuff starts making it so that it gets so.
That is insane to me that you can leave reviews on early access games, which I understand
it makes sense
because
you're paying for it.
But also like,
you should be able to, if you're paying for it, you should be able to read a review.
But also like you can leave comments in the community and stuff like that. So like there's lots of ways on Steam to give feedback and let people know what's going on with an early access game. But the idea that like it's not
really, it should
done
just be fragmented.
And it's not
what should happen, right? Is like the launch. Once you launch, your early access reviews should
kind of get like
they should be invisible now because they don't apply.
Yeah,
or you could bake them. You know, you could say like early access overall.
I think it should be both. Or maybe like early because we see this also like on any platform, right? If there are complaints about something, so you get like a 3-star review about that thing, you release an update. What if that update fixes that thing? That complaint is no longer valid, right? The problem is that a platform can't know if like an update you put out addresses a thing. I think is Apple still.
You can do like resets. Yeah, you can do segments now on. Yeah. I think on Google and Apple both. I'm pretty sure you could be like reset my reviews.
Yeah. So because you need to be able to.
But even just being able
don't update their
they don't. Yeah. But even being able to just draw a line in the sand somehow on the back end and say like, hey, we've released this major update, so we want to have our reviews at least segmented. So that way, you know, if somebody's looking at the reviews, it's like, here's the overall reviews, but then if they mouse over, it's like, here's the reviews from like this update onward. Oh, they're 95% positive.
Right. And
but
Steam
everything
kind
before
of
that
has
was
that
60%,
with their like recent reviews versus total. And I think that's honestly, that's not
true.
It's not a bad way to do it because Steam can't know what an update's doing. You know, whatever. It doesn't. And I use that all the time to be like, if I'm seeing negative reviews for a game, but the recent reviews are positive, I'm like, oh, they must have fixed some stuff that people didn't like. So I think we do get that there to an extent. But I think to me, that's the big one is like, if I'm in early access and I switch, to me, that should be like definitionally Steam's like, cool, early access does not apply. That just is gone, right? I mean, maybe it's still there for posterity. Maybe you can still go see it, but it wouldn't even be like visible, like shown on purpose by default, right? It would just be in the same way you can like hide reviews by people who got the game for free and whatever.
Yeah, it's also just a perk of the demo. Like, this is why we're treating the demo kind of like early access. Yeah, it's just one that doesn't expose the game to getting review bombed.
Yeah,
you know?
It's so nice. Not worry about.
So we could try stuff. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like it. The reality is like these are all cursed problems. You can't. These are not things that can be fully solved because of just the nature of things, right? Again,
every solution just creates a different set of problems.
Yeah, it's more so just recognizing, at least on our side, strategically, that today I don't think we would do early access unless essentially the game was like 1.0, if that makes sense, to put into early access. So you call it early access, and then you do some.
So your post-launch support is actually just your early access.
I think
exactly.
Honestly,
because early access is a launch. It's the same.
Yeah, I don't think there's really a lot of benefit to an early access launch unless you think you might not launch the full game, like, which is the thing people are the most afraid of. Yeah, like really early access, and then like using it as a test to be like, do people even into this?
Then just do it on fucking itch. Then you know what I mean?
Or just do a demo. You know, then there's no paid aspect, but
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, I'm
Straight.
saying like I'm not saying you should do this. I'm saying like the use case is
Oh, you're saying like you need funding?
you've invested a lot of cash.
Yeah, I get you.
You're not
you're,
sure
you're
if it
running
was
out
a
of
good
money, but the
idea.
game's not done.
You're running out of money. The game's not done. So get it out. And if you discover also nobody wants it, then at least you got a little bit of cash. And then,
Mhm.
again, I'm not saying you should do that because players don't want you to do that. And that's going to be bad for your studio, bad for your brand name. Also, maybe ethically ambiguous. It's an early access title, so this is what you get, what you pay for.
Just
Be
risk,
clear
you know.
about it. But
It's somewhere between a Kickstarter and a launch. It's like there's always an expectation that things might not pan out on early access titles.
Yeah, I think the reality is like we want to make good stuff for people, right? And you want to be able to have constructive conversations with those people. And I think the challenge is not like formatting your game launch in such a way that it gets like nerfed by the platforms because you want to ease expectations about it, but also doing it in such a way that you can get the amount of like traction you need and get players there. I don't know. It's just like it's
like we
a
talked about
curse.
last
It's very hard.
episode with how to handle mobile for this game, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you're constantly, and I think this is the thing that indie game developers in particular just always have to be paying attention to on the business side. Is the business side is its own kind of game. There's the part that I think kind of universally we don't like,
You're
which
right.
is the money part where we're talking to business people about what like that part, got to do it, right? But I understand just being like, I hate this, right? But the part where you're trying to figure out like, how does the store work? What are my options for talking to players? How does the review system work? What happens when I put out an update? What do players expect? Like all that. That's all
part
part
of
of the
game free. What kind of programs can I not even participate in? You know what I mean? Like there's shit like
what are
that.
all the things?
Like yeah.
Yeah, and also when you get down to player expectations, because player expectations are not just they have your game, their expectations live inside the game, and that's it. Their expectations are also shaped by the platform. Their ability to interact with you or to tell you that something is wrong or whatever, right? Their experience goes outside the bounds of the game. So you got to figure out what are all the things outside the bounds of the game
when they give
how
you
do I do
feedback
that?
or
That's true. Yeah,
Yep.
it's a game within a game.
Yep.
And if you treat it all the same way you treat your game design, as in the game is the whole human experience, not just what happens when somebody has a game and plays it. Then you can. It's like it's all challenging, just like game design is, but you can have fun with it.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have stuff like the Discord, right? It's like I always remember playing EVE Online, where people would joke about how like the people who play EVE Online the most don't even have a subscription, because they play EVE Online by like coordinating with their community and managing stuff as administrators, and they don't actually ever log into the game at all. Because for them the fun of the game is the social and management side, and oddly you don't need to be in the game to do it, but it's still part of the game.
I've loved that with one of the things we got with How Many Dudes that I'm so excited about is the fact that it is so conversational. So being in the community is part of it's so fun to come in and be like, hey, I've been running this build with like I got these generals commanding this little army of zombies who then explode when they get hit. Like, is there anything else I could do? It's I don't know, just swapping strategies and talking shop is like really fun about this game, and I think it's a thing we haven't really hit. We've always tried to get it, but haven't really had it super meaningfully.
We thought we would hit that with something like Levelhead. Yeah, but
we did.
And the thing is, like, we did
Yeah.
within that small community, because like there's so much you can do in that game that we do have people who have 3,000 hours in that game.
It's
just
also still
very
really
small
like
community.
the most active part of our Discord.
It's still the Levelhead.
It's like we're now having like these peaks of How Many Dudes activity. And I think probably at this point now there are more messages coming in there than in the Levelhead ones, but probably still not by a ton. And the Levelhead community is way smaller than the How Many Dudes community is right now.
Yeah, Levelhead generated a lot of conversation. That's true. That's true. Yeah, I think it's that game outside of the game that people can play. Thinking about it.
Think about everything holistically, so otherwise, so we're getting all this stuff out. We're doing all these events, and then we're just kind of going into our dev cave pretty soon. And we're kind of getting this demo to a spot where like it's good, it's locked in, it's in a good spot, and it's just going to sit there and churn for a while, so that we can put our full attention onto finishing the full game. And
if we put out any updates to the demo, it's probably gonna be like
it's just
little balance
little
tweaks or fixes and like
things,
stuff. If we notice there's like significant, because we've already seen significant problems with the current demo that's out. Like there's some broken things, like some parts, and like there's a few bugs that make us like if you get a certain dude type, you can kind of just win. There's some stuff in there, or you can hit Alt F4 to like basically reroll. Like
Yeah.
there's like
do
there's
fixes, but not going to worry about anything.
yeah, but like that stuff we even just kind of left most of it alone because we're
That's
like,
fine.
but
Yeah, that's fine.
it's just that part of the demo.
It's just part of the game right now.
Yep.
Yeah, that's also the benefit of putting something as pre-alpha, where it's like people are like, oh yeah, this is all just whatever, it's just janky sometimes. Yeah, so then we're going to be kind of moving into like a big content push where we're going to be making tons and tons of dude types, and then we got to do like a big bounce, pass, and all that. We got to work on end game stuff, new bosses, new game modes. But yeah, we're just going to be cruising now.
Mhm.
So we'll kind of have the demo locked in, and then
We'll report back.
we'll have more news later.
Mhm.
So that's all the time we have for this week. I would like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa DaCosta, for putting the podcast together. And thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate, and links to the podcast archives. And of course, if you haven't yet, head on over to Steam and check out the How Many Dudes demo. It's updated by the time this episode comes out with all the cool new stuff, including a UI dark mode. So your eyes can finally have a rest.
And I did darken every single arena, by the way. So I think every single
all
one,
the backgrounds got dark.
especially the first one. So they are a little easier on the eyes if you are a maniac who runs your monitor on full brightness.
Yeah.
If you're one of those people.
Yeah, we did as a fun. We had one person who was like, "Could you guys add a setting that just makes everything darker?" And I was like, "Bro, your monitor already has a button.
Your monitor's too bright.
Just turn your brightness down." Crazy stuff. So, anyways, that's it for this week. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.